We now have a lot more information about Germanwings Flight 9525, which crashed into the French Alps while the co-pilot was at the helm, and the captain was desperately banging on the door trying to get into the cockpit. Ultimately, it was determined that the crash was a result of deliberate action taken by 28-year-old German co-pilot Andreas Lubitz. We have since found out a lot more about the co-pilot, including he was being treated for depression, which he seems to have been hiding from his employer. He had been excused from work by his psychiatrist for a period that included the day that the crash took place, according to a source who told the Wall Street Journal this information, but ignored that advice and went to work anyway. The motive remains unclear, but someone who's familiar with the investigation said he didn't have any kind of terminal illness. That's not a factor here. And I'm starting to wonder whether we have a significant double standard here. Would this have been called a terrorist attack if it were a Muslim? If someone said the Muslim co-pilot was depressed, would the so-called patriot crowd just say, oh, okay, perfectly valid, not terrorism? Or would they say, depression or not, this was a terroristic act? We here have a white German man deliberately crashing a plane, killing everyone on board. And do we really believe that if he had been Muslim or black or Hispanic, that the neo-Nazi forums wouldn't be hysterical about this? It turns out we have a terrorist suicide perpetrated by a white German. There has been almost no discussion of this as an act of terror, no calls to look into white Germans more broadly. Can anyone argue there is no double standard? Now, let me preempt what I know will be emails I'm going to get. I'm not saying that we should be treating this as a deliberate act of terror. It may well have been related to this man's mental condition. But the reality is that millions of people are depressed and millions of people are anxious, and many of them are undergoing treatment. Not all are being told to miss work by their psychiatrist, right? So let's acknowledge that. And we would not necessarily be as quick to simply allow for that as the sole and singular explanation. As some proof of this double standard, let's look at Pat Robertson, Christian host of the 700 Club, who said, what happened here? Was this guy a Muslim? I mean, we don't understand what took place. Take a listen.
The co-pilot then takes the plane, pushes it into a dive, and crashes it. The passengers are screaming as the plane went down. The pilot is yelling. The voice recorder have got it all on tape. What a terrible tragedy. Was that co-pilot a Muslim? Was he suicidal? What was it about him? He had 630 hours flying experience, which isn't a whole lot.
Was the co-pilot a Muslim? Where does that question even come from? What was the religion of Andreas Lubitz? I think that we clearly have a double standard here, and we need to simply be aware of it. This is not about placing specific blame on one thing or another. There's an investigation. Family, friends, everyone is being talked to that was connected to Andreas Lubitz. But in terms of the initial reactions, you can't tell me there is no double standard here as far as how this is treated, because it was not a Muslim man. If you disagree with me, tell me specifically why.